Well, hello again and welcome back to the mean streets of Gosforth. Now we're going to have a little wander and I'm going to show you one of this area's finest eateries, popular with a certain Newcastle player who likes to drink Moretti, and seeing as the sun is just about out this afternoon, I'm going to plan to join him. So yeah, I mean, I've been away for a week or so now, so plenty to catch up on during our little stroll here. The defeat down at Manchester City, the subsequent fallout from that, a lot to unpick. I've got a couple of strong opinions which I want to bring you. We've got Eddie Howe's press conference this morning, and then we'll finish by looking ahead to Liverpool on Sunday, and wow, what a game that is. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. There's all manner of rival channels popping up now, so I should probably say this at the start of the video rather than the end, boost the algorithm, all that. But yeah, and I should start by making apologies for my voice. Now, I was away last week in Madeira with my three little boys, went to a water park, and it was it was great fun. Doing my best impression of Eddie Howe, jumping off water slides to take calls on transfers, and we'll speak as well about Lewis Hall. That's just reminded me. So yeah, survived the entire day. I was feeling quite pleased with myself physically. I'd even said to my wife, aren't we lucky that here we are 40-year-olds and we've been on the go for 7-8 hours answering the kids every need and want up and down slides, and should be thankful that physically we're able to do that. Then at 5 to 6, just as they're kicking us out, I went down one last slide, which I'll put on screen now, and did something no man of my age should really attempt to do, and that was pull my knees to my chest and replicate what the young kids were doing. Really, it sends you in a spin, out of control at a greater speed. Now, before that, I'd been going down almost like a crash test dummy, really, with no movement at all, but it was safe. What I did on the last spin wasn't safe, and I entered the water at a rough estimate of sort of 20 to 25 mile an hour with my ribs taking the full impact. Now, I came off the slide and my wife said that didn't look too good. I said, no, I'm fine. I said, I can handle this. Yeah, I was in the RVI for 5 hours yesterday and I've got 2 cracked ribs. So for some reason it's affected my voice. They don't know why. Any medical experts out there, please below the line if you've got any ideas. But yeah, my voice is a little bit hoarse. I'm on strong painkillers, so the ribs are good, but the voice isn't. I took my 3 boys to watch a Portuguese second division match, which I'll put on screen as well. Brilliant experience. We're all football fans who watch this channel, aren't we? And going to games abroad, especially when you're not working, just the different sights, the smells, the sound is just wonderful. And we watched Maritimo be beaten 1-0 by AVS, I think it was. Yeah. Now this was after the rib incident, and actually it was pretty painful. I went downstairs at half time to get a beer to numb the pain, only to learn this is one drawback: Portuguese grounds only serve non-alcoholic beer, so be warned. Yeah, and the reason I say it's a little bit of a segue is the pitch was full of Brazilians. Obviously the language, both speak Portuguese, so I think half the players on show were Brazilians. So a lot of skill, a lot of guys who like to run in one direction and not in the other, but nonetheless wholly enjoyable. So here we are, 3.5 minutes in, we eventually get to Newcastle, and the link is Brazilians, Bruno Guimarães, and the subsequent fallout from the 1-0 defeat down at Manchester City last week. Now, Bruno wasn't happy with the post from the NUFC 360 account, which invited feedback on Newcastle's performance, and he responded with a fairly strongly worded tweet where he accused the fans or the account of having short, stupid memories. And now listen, in the wider context of what he was saying, I understood it, and I thought there was valid grounds there, because I do think the reaction to both defeat and victory, and this isn't just among Newcastle fans, it's among supporters in general, especially on social media, is so extreme. It is so extreme. Now we'll get into the nitty-gritty of what I thought of Newcastle's performance at City in just a second, but for example, now after Newcastle beat Aston Villa on the first weekend of the season, I wrote Aston Villa were good, but they weren't good enough, and I said that as well on the Daily Mail podcast. It's all kicking off on the Monday. Now, I had a load of Aston Villa fans come back to me saying, stop talking rubbish, we were awful, we were terrible. The point I make is it's not just Newcastle fans, it is so intense when a team loses. There's this need and this want to lash out at the players. Now, I thought Villa were good for now, and I thought there was plenty of signs that they would be a decent team going forward this season. They've then gone and beaten Everton 4-0. We saw Sir Alex Ferguson's comments, which, yes, they were bizarre, saying that the team who impressed him most on the opening weekend were Aston Villa, who were beaten 5-1 at Newcastle. But I got to a degree where he was coming from. So you see the point I'm sort of making, which brings us back to the fallout in Newcastle at City. Now, I was watching it from a bar in Madeira with my 3 boys, and you're looking at social media and the reaction, and yeah, I thought a lot of the reaction was too strong. It's And I'm going to contradict myself here, because I do think you have to remember that it's one game. What Bruno said about achieving Champions League football, everything else is absolutely right. I fully support that. But at the same time, let us not deny our self-analysis of the game down at Manchester City. And here are my thoughts. I thought it was an opportunity missed. And I say that because... So I walked back into the press conference this morning, and Martin Hardy of the Times, a good friend of mine, we had a quick 2-second catch up. How are you? How was the holiday? All the rest of it. And then it descended into a debate. I was going to say argument. It wasn't an argument. It was a debate which we disagreed on. You saw the merits or otherwise of the defeat down at City. And Martin, who was there, by the way, so his opinion probably does carry more weight than mine on this. But Martin said City were just a different level, a different class. There's a huge gulf there. And I agree with that. I still do agree with that. There are levels, and Newcastle have still got to go a little bit to get to City's level. But that doesn't mean they couldn't have performed better individually last Saturday. Just because City are a good team doesn't mean Joe Linton can't pass the ball 5 or 10 yards, as a couple of times he was errant with that. It doesn't mean Bruno Guimarães and Sandro Tonali can't run harder than what they did. It doesn't mean, the final touch and the application of Gordon, Almiron and Isak to a lesser extent couldn't have been better in the final third just because you're playing Manchester City. And that was my point. I thought it was an opportunity missed because Newcastle were way below what I know them to be capable of. I thought City were good. They're always good, but in the second half especially, I thought they looked a little tired. Newcastle had a lot of territory without really creating what you would call a real goal scoring chance. So to that end, I think there was cause for, should we call it criticism, analysis, whatever word you want to use. So I thought, yes, they could have played better, especially in the first half. When I was watching it, I thought, this cannot be Newcastle's game plan. Eddie Howe would not have sent out a team to play the way they did that night. They were just so subservient. It was like performances under some previous managers. So, and Eddie subsequently came out and said that he was furious at half time. He doesn't very often get angry, but on this occasion he did. And I thought he had just cause, and it was better in the second half without being good enough. But does that mean that there's cause for outcry against Dan Burn, against Bruno, all the rest of it? Absolutely not. It's one game. This team, what they've achieved, are allowed one below par game. They're allowed 2, they're allowed 3, maybe not 4, but they are allowed a few of them, because you would always back them to bounce back, and that is why it's so interesting, this game. We go from week to week and all eyes on Liverpool now, and it's added an extra degree of intrigue. Something I do want to say, and I'm going to go full Monday night football here, something I picked up on. Now, I think Newcastle have got a little bit of a problem this year with players in the number 10/second striker position. We saw on the first weekend of the season v Aston Villa, Moussa Diaby caused Newcastle in the first hour all manner of problems. And at one point, we've got a great vantage from the press box. We were looking there in between Shaw, Botman and Tonali and Bruno in midfield. They were looking at each other. Who's picking them up? And they didn't seem to know who. And that again was a problem, I thought, on Saturday. You had Phil Foden operating that position. It was excellent. But the goal, the Julian Alvarez goal, when Alvarez scores, he's in that position, that sort of that second striker, that number 10. And who's picking him up? Well, the nearest man for me was Sandro Tonali, and I've watched the goal back now, and I've taken it back, about a minute before it was scored, and it's Tonali who was in the vicinity, but just didn't have the awareness to pick him up. And please do go back and watch it back yourselves. And I think this is a little bit of an issue when you haven't got that real designated number 6 or maybe it's a Sean Longstaff type who's got that awareness, because Joe Linton on the left, he's bothered about his left back and his left winger, but then you've got Bruno and Tonali, and I do think that could be a little bit of an issue going forward for Newcastle this season, when you've got two players of sort of equal type mindset in that central midfield area. So yeah, that was something I picked out. But again, I thought in the second half they had enough territory. It wasn't the worst performance in the world, but just not as good as we know they can be, and in many ways that probably is a positive. Now that leads us on to Eddie's press conference this morning, when inevitably he was asked about Bruno Guimarães in his response on social media, and I thought Eddie went further than what I thought he normally would do. Now, he said that Bruno will learn a lesson from it. The tweet was subsequently deleted. People from the club have spoken to Bruno about his emotion and his reaction on social media, but nonetheless, Eddie being Eddie said, you draw a line and you quickly move on. I'm going to draw a quick line here because we're crossing a very busy road, and we'll go to somewhere a little bit quieter. Gosforth Park. This is a little bit better, isn't it? Which brings us on to the newsy items to emerge from Eddie's press conference this morning. Ryan Fraser is on the verge of a season-long loan move down to Southampton, which is Newcastle will be picking up a fair degree of the wages, I would say there, but nonetheless it serves no one any good having a player just appreciating an under-21s. Joe Willock, fitness wise, won't train again probably with the first team properly until around the time of the international break, so that hamstring injury from the back end of last season really has taken a lot longer than any of us expected to heal. That's a blow, bearing in mind I think I've spoken before about how much improvement I think we'd seen from Joe Willock under Eddie Howe. And as well, transfer news, Eddie's asked again, is Lewis Hall the last deal? Eddie says yes, it probably is, unless they lose a couple of players in one position. And certainly the word coming back to me last week was that they would be done with a net spend of, in the end, I think around sort of 95 million pounds. So, and that is because, of course, the Lewis Hall deal is a loan with an obligation to buy for 28 million pound plus 7 in add-ons. And on Lewis Hall now, I've listened to other podcasts and read a little bit, and there's been some eyebrows raised as why Newcastle would commit potentially £35 million on an 18-year-old who's only played a handful of times. And okay, I get that, but I've seen Lewis Hall play a few times now, and if you go back to my video at the end of last season, I thought he was Chelsea's best player on the final day of the season. Always been impressed by him. 18-year-old, bags of potential. His versatility, Eddie listed it took about 2 minutes actually for Eddie to list all of his positions this morning. Left back, left wing back, central midfield. You can play on the left of a back three as well, so left wing he can fit in there. I personally think it's a brilliant buy for Newcastle, and the fee in time could look relatively modest. Likewise with Tino Livramento, who's 2 years older than him. Newcastle in theory could have just bought 2 England full-backs for years to come. Bearing in mind as well, they're coming into a club who does improve players. Players do kick on for working with Eddie Howe and his staff. So yeah, personally, I'm excited by those two acquisitions, and I think they're very smart. Bearing in mind, as much as Newcastle had 2 brilliant fullbacks last year in Kieran Trippier and Dan Burn, they're both north of 30 now, and what lies beneath that isn't much. So yeah, I applaud the business on the whole. We'll get into that more at the back end of the week. I'm going to be down in London actually presenting the Mail's transfer show. I'm going to bring you a video from that behind the scenes look once we know at the end the sort of the final reckonings of Newcastle's business. We'll sit through it and have a chat, and I'll answer your questions on where I think they've gone right and where I think they've gone wrong. One last little bit to emerge from today news wise, that is Joe Linton should be fine for Sunday. Of course, went off down at Man City last Sunday, but he'll have to be a lot better. I thought Joe Linton, Eddie said there was several key players who underperformed on down at the Etihad. I thought Joe Linton was definitely one of them. In fact, I thought the whole midfield, Sandro Tonali, was unrecognisable from the player 7 days previous against Aston Villa. Now I think Tonali might be one of those in the short term who actually enjoys playing at home, and he enjoys being that leading man, really, that character who struts about, the alpha male, the protagonist, and he certainly took on that role against Villa. 4:30 against Liverpool on Sunday. It's going to be an occasion for players like that. And Bruno as well. Bruno's got a little bit to prove, of course, after events of this week. Now, Eddie again this morning was pressed on Jurgen Klopp, and he plays the sort of bemused card as to why we ask all these questions about the rivalry between Liverpool and Newcastle, but it has emerged and it exists primarily because of Jurgen Klopp's comments, and I say the plural there, about Newcastle since the Saudi takeover. And of course he said last year that they just couldn't compete with Newcastle with regard to spending power. Now Liverpool this summer have spent £100 million and we're prepared to take that beyond £200 million with the potential purchase of Moses Caicedo. Now he chose to go to Chelsea, but I said that to Eddie Howe, what did he look on and think? And Eddie laughed and he said, I know what you want me to say, Craig, but as Eddie does, he proceeded to give a very diplomatic answer. He also said, when pressed on his friendship with Jurgen Klopp, he said, I've got no time for friendship in football. I'm too competitive. So while I respect him, I'm not friends with him, and I never will be. So yeah, while not stoking it that level, it does add a little bit of spice always to this fixture, and it's become one of the most anticipated of the season for those reasons. And who can forget what happened a year ago down at Anfield. Now, what will happen on Sunday? Now, I honestly thought going into this season, bearing in mind how Liverpool finished last, I thought they'd be as good. I had them in my prediction to finish in the top 4. I'm not so sure now, based on what I've seen the first couple of weeks of the season. Certainly against Bournemouth last week, Liverpool looked like what they were, you know, the back end of last season. A team who was getting by on moments, as opposed to a real sort of, you know, constructive team performance. And I would put Newcastle as favourites going into this one, especially if they can replicate that intensity and that offensive aggression which they had against Aston Villa. I think Liverpool have got mistakes in them at the back. I've said for a long time now that Virgil van Dijk isn't the player a lot of people think he isn't the player he thinks he is. I think he coasts too much at time. I think there's, you know, you can exploit him there. Likewise, Trent Alexander-Arnold from a defensive point. I don't think that's been mentioned before, has it? Alexander-Arnold and his defending. You know, that's probably a subject for people to get into. But yeah, I would put Newcastle as favourites going into this one. What will he do team-wise? I think there will be changes. I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Harvey Barnes come in on the left. Anthony Gordon wasn't at his best last week, and I think there are just one or two positions he could freshen it, in which he could freshen it up. I think Miguel Almiron might be lucky to retain his jersey after his performance last week, but then who do you bring in? There aren't as many obvious candidates on the right hand side, so we'll wait and see on that front. But nonetheless, you know, half forwards and James against Liverpool, I just think it's got all the ingredients of an absolute cracker, and I'll be back to bring you a video after that match. Now, we're not far, as I promised you at the start of the video, from this area's one of its finest restaurants, which last week was frequented by a certain Italian midfielder. Now, I know the expats enjoy these videos, so here we go. This is when we morph into travelogue. Thanks as well to the guy in Jesmond Cricket Club last night, an expat from Vancouver, who said that he enjoys the videos and that gives him a little connection with back home. It's always honestly so real, genuinely so nice to hear that from expats. But here we are, guys, the one and only, the Job Bullman, the Wetherspoons of Gosforth, where last week Sandro Tonali sat down to a $5.99 egg and chips with his family. Here we are. And that window, just over my shoulder there, is the window in which he subsequently had his picture. And if you notice, he picked up the Lloyds Bank opposite there. So there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this latest reflection. I'm about to pop into the Job Bullman to see if they do indeed sell Moretti. Please hit like, please hit subscribe. I'll be back post match on Sunday when I've got a feeling there's going to be a hell of a lot to unpick. Keep watching, guys. Stay safe. And here we are. It's Tonali's window. Okay, bye bye.